these resin rumors. Thanks, Phil. Alright, so we'll grab the PVC pipe. So this is another one. So if we don't have enough mobility in the hips, actually, we'll set the PVC down for a second. So if we don't have enough mobility in the hips, that's where we tend to have back issues, low back issues. So we're gonna start on all fours. We're gonna do a little cat-cow or cat-camel type situation. So we're on all fours, so this is called a 6-point or a quadruped position, either one. But we're gonna go 6-point because we want the toes underneath the heels. Okay, then from there, we're gonna only from the hips. So we don't want you to only try to do it from your back. I want you to do it from your hips to where you tuck your hips under and you're trying to bring your belly button closer to your chin. So we're not really doing it from the thoracic spine. We want to do it from the hips. So I know in yoga, they want you to do it from the thoracic spine. But for this specific purpose, we only want to do it from the hips. Okay? So we'll go into that cat, and then we'll do the cow. Okay? Only from the hips. Just do 3 or 4 more reps each way. Good. Hey-o. Alright, so go ahead and stand up. Then we're going to do the same thing, standing up. So we're trying to keep the upper body as stable as possible. And we're going to do the same thing with the hips. So we want to tuck the hips under. So we're trying to shorten the distance from the belly button to the chin. And then we're going to open up the other way. Okay? So it's here, here. So the upper body is staying quiet. So we're arching. So if you think of the hips like a bucket, and when we tilt, so when we tilt the hips forward, that's called an anterior tilt. And then we tip the hips backwards, that's a posterior. So which one do you feel your abs more? When you go back this way or this way? This way or that way?
This way.
So when you tuck under or when you push back?
Under.
You tuck under, right? So with that anterior tilt, the anterior tilt, we're activating the low back and we're activating the hip flexors here. When we come underneath, we're activating, you can feel your glutes. So when you pull underneath, feel your glutes, it should be tight. Okay, so we have that cross. So when we're in this position, think about if you're wearing heels, that's the position we get into. The hips naturally want to tip forward. So now we're activating the hip flexors and the low back. When we come underneath, we're activating the abs and the glutes. So a lot of the times, because of how we sit and just because of how we operate over the course of the day, we tend to be in this position where the ribs are flared and the hips are tilted forward. That tends to cause some issues with the low back when we're stuck in that position for a long time. Hip flexors are really tight, low back is really tight, abs are turned off, glutes are turned off. So the goal is for us to be able to turn them on, and then be able to have that mobility in the hips. When we have that mobility in the hips, low back issues tend to not be an issue. Alright, so let's grab the PVC pipe. So we'll take the PVC pipe, you're gonna put it behind your back, and you're gonna make sure you have a little wiggle room. So you are gonna have that anterior tilt, you're gonna stick your hips out a little bit so you have a little bit of wiggle room here. See that wiggle room? Okay, now we want the PVC pipe touching the butt, the in between the shoulder blades and the back of your head. Okay, we want them touching all 3 points at the same time. Then from there, feet about hip width apart, slight bend in the knees, and then we're just gonna push back from there. Maintaining contact with all 3 points at the same time. So it should not come off your butt, should not come off your shoulders, should not come off your head. So it's gotta be touching all 3 points. We're not looking for a huge range of motion here. We wanna maintain contact with all 3 points the whole time. Nice and easy, slight bend in the knee. There we go. There you go. Let's not go too far, it's coming off your low back now, so we wanna keep it right there in the top. 3 points. So this is a perfect hinge. So with this one, we have the hips tilted forward slightly. Because they're tilted forward, we're now actually elongating the hamstrings. So the hamstrings are longer in this position. So when people have this kind of posture, this is what we call an S posture. When people have this posture and then say, oh, my hamstrings are super tight. Well, actually they're not, they're long because your hips are tilted forward, so we're now stretching the hamstring. But the issue is that we have lack of mobility in the hips. But one of the reasons this is actually important in this movement is because it helps stabilize the low back. So because we're activating the hamstrings. So when we're here, this is how, when we don't go turn on the shower in this position, this is how we pull our back. This was a tough lesson for me to learn. When we go to pick up a piece of paper, if we don't pick it up with good hinge form, it can end up hurting us. And again, if we're injured, we can't be in the gym more often. So the goal is to reduce the risk of injury. So think of some of the movements that we do in here. So you think of deadlifts, kettlebell swings, you think of bent over rows. These are all in that hinge position that we do on a daily basis. Whether you're bending down to tie your shoe, whether you're picking something off the ground, no matter what it is, there are things that we do that are down here, even if it's pulling out a drawer. If we don't maintain good form while we do that, the risk of injury goes up. So this one is a really important one to be able to maintain good posture. So you think of, if we're doing a deadlift, where's the deadlift normally give you trouble if you don't do it properly? It's always in your low back, right? Those two muscles on either side of your spine get really tight, and then it's hard to walk for 2 days. It's never fun. But if we're able to maintain that tilt in the hips as we do the deadlifts, it puts all of the pressure, or 90% of the pressure, on the hamstrings. Takes it off the back, goes into the hamstrings. So after you do deadlifts, after you do kettlebell swings, single leg RDLs, even bent over rows. If you're doing a bent over row and you're doing this, your low back is gonna start hurting. If you can tilt those hips. So one of the best cues here is you wanna make sure that the shins stay vertical, and all you're doing is pushing your hips back to the wall. Shins stay vertical, and then push your hips back to the wall. So do it without the PVC pipe now. Slide down the knees, and then all we're doing is pushing the hips back to the wall. Then go ahead and put your hands out in front, reach out in front as far as you can. Reach, 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 keeping the weight back on the heels, keep reaching. Where do you guys feel that? Feel it in your hamstrings? Keep reaching back, keep reaching. Turn your thumbs down and reach forward, reach backwards. Keep the weight back on the heels. You can drop your chest down a little bit lower, go for it. Reach the hips back. Should feel those hamstrings working. There you go. Alright, come on up, take a break. Alright, let's take the PVC pipe again. So this time we're gonna do a single leg RDL. Balance on the foot. And then we're gonna keep that same position. If you want, you can do a little kickstand so you can keep a toe on the ground. You can go heel to toe. Ooh wee. There's Crispies. There we go. Trying to keep the toes pointing in. There you go, then. Good. Go ahead, switch sides. Do 4 or 5 reps on the other side. You should feel this big time in that hamstring on the leg that you're balancing on. You guys feeling that? Beautiful. So that's the next one is gonna be the number 4 on the list is the hinge. When we do the hinge properly, it puts the emphasis on the posterior chain. And for me, the posterior chain is the new 6-pack abs. It's so important because we do so much out in front of us between whether we're on our phone, driving, on laptops, everything is always out in front of us. So what ends up happening is we end up getting rounded this way. And our posture ends up going to shit, so we end up, excuse the French. But that's basically what happens, and it's when we open up, when we start to use the posterior chain, the posture becomes better. And when the posture is good, then again, we reduce that risk of injury, which means we can come into the gym more often and put our intention to good use. That all make sense?